If your goal is to move and feel better, one of the biggest bang for your buck ways of achieving this is by improving your shoulder mobility. That's why I've spent the last 13 years as a physical therapist figuring out what the best exercises are to help you achieve this goal. But the problem is not everyone has the same needs. We don't all have the same movement restrictions. I'm going to solve that problem for you today because in this video, I'm going to teach you how to self-assess your shoulder mobility, and then I'll give you an exercise sequence that's specific to your mobility needs. So that way you can move and feel better. And if you work through this progression over the next month and you stick around to the end, I'll show you how to progress your mobility and performance for the long haul. The first step is you need to test your shoulder mobility. That way you know where your restrictions are and what you need to address. Now, when you're testing your shoulder motion, you're not only looking at the shoulder joint itself, but you're looking at the relationship of this area to the shoulder blade, to the collarbones, and especially to the rib cage, which is the shoulder's foundation. There are 3 tests I'm going to want you to look at. The first test is shoulder external rotation. Because of how the shoulder blade moves on the rib cage during this motion, it gives us an appreciation for upper back mobility as well as lower rib cage mobility. Lie on your back with your knees bent. Your arm should form a 90-degree angle both at the shoulder and at the elbow. You're going to let your arm fall back towards the ground without arching your back. The goal is to get a 90-degree angle, or in this case, because you're self-testing, if you can get the knuckles to touch the ground with about a 30-degree wrist bend, you're gonna be in business. The next test is shoulder internal rotation. Again, because of the way the shoulder blade moves on the rib cage, this gives us an appreciation for how the lower part of the ribs in the back move, especially the lower back area, as well as the front of the chest. To test this, we're going to look at an Apley's scratch test. Looking straight ahead, take one arm and try to touch the opposite top of the shoulder blade. The opposite arm is going to touch the bottom opposite shoulder blade. Ideally, your middle finger should hit both of these points. If you can't do that, then you're likely restricted in shoulder internal rotation. And the last test is shoulder flexion. This gives us an appreciation for both internal and external rotation, but at different ranges of the test. Lie on your back with the knees bent. Bend your elbow so your palm is facing your shoulder. Keeping your arm tucked at its side, you're going to lift the shoulder up so your fingers touch the ground. If you notice that your arm flares outward at any point in this test, you want to call it. And sometimes that happens even within that range. If you can get to that point and your elbow is comfortably staying in, then walk your hand upward, keeping that elbow in. If at any point in time the elbow flares outward or your back arches, you'll want to stop the test. Now, most of the time, people only focus on fixing one of these specific limitations. That can work in the short term, but if you want long-term changes, you have to look at these 3 tests in a cluster. Depending on which ones are limited, that can tell you precisely what areas of the body, especially in the rib cage, you need to create more space or drive more range of motion. That way you can get these shoulder changes to stick for the long haul. Now here's the deal. There's tons of different possibilities that you could have in terms of range of motion restrictions, but I'm going to show you the ones that I find most commonly in the clinic. And these are the areas that I would say 90+% of people need to start at. You're either going to be in the hella stiff camp. This is someone who's limited in all directions. The arched and flat upper back camp, which is limited in shoulder flexion and internal rotation. The slouched camp, which is limited in shoulder flexion and external rotation. Or the asymmetrical camp. This is someone who's limited in flexion on both sides and has one shoulder measure that's full, yes, full, and the other measure that is limited. Now, if you're like, whoa, that's way too complicated, Zach, I don't know which one I fit in, start with the hella stiff one first, then go through the slouched movements, then go through the arched movements, and then go through the asymmetrical movements. Lastly, come closer. Do not be the person who jumps automatically to the asymmetrical movements, even if you feel asymmetrical. To be clear, you have to have one measure that is completely full. So if external rotation needs to be at 90 degrees, and the other on the opposite side also needs to be full, your aptly scratch must be able to hit both of those points on the shoulder. If you do not have that, you are not asymmetrical yet. You have more superficial strategies that need to be addressed first. Even if you want to get to this layer in your movement strategies, if you got this big guy on top of it, you can try all you want. You gotta take that one off first. Once you figure out what camp you're in, do the exercises in that sequence for a minimum of 2 weeks. Then recheck your measures. If you still have the same limitations, but they're a little bit better, I'll show you how to progress those movements. If you've cleared the tests and things are looking good, then you'll want to recheck the other measures that are limited to see if you can progress to the next phase of exercises. Let's first start with the hella stiff camp. These are the folks who have increased muscle activity on the front and back of the body. This creates a more compressive strategy on those areas, and that can limit rotation. So the focus that we will do to try to improve this motion is by squeezing the sides, so that way the rib cage acts more cylindrically, which can improve your rotation, not just in the torso, but especially in your shoulders. Start by lying on your side with 2 yoga blocks or firm pads, or heck, even books, I don't care. You're gonna put one on the top part of the pelvis, and the other one's gonna go long ways along the rib cage. Lie down over those blocks. It will be a little uncomfortable. Make sure your head is supported as you're doing this. You'll want to do a slow 4 to 6 count breath in through the nose quietly. The exhale is going to be soft through the mouth for the same time frame. Think as you're going through this movement about melting down and relaxing into those blocks. You're gonna stay in this position for 3 to 4 sets of 60 seconds. The next move is gonna focus on learning how to slowly rotate without using bigger muscle groups to complete the action, because that'll limit motion. Lie on your side with your arm resting on a foam roller. Quietly nasal breathing throughout, you're going to log roll your body. So your nose, your chest, and your zipper should all move as a unit as your shoulder stays relaxed on the foam roller. I would do this for a minimum of 60 seconds, but what I find works better is doing 2 to 3 minutes at a time with this specific movement. Now we're gonna work on incorporating some of those strategies with a little bit of weight. Lie on your side with the bottom leg straight and the top leg bent. Place a weight in the top arm and have it reach toward the ceiling. Your chest should be parallel to the wall. The bottom arm is going to be gently pressing into the ground at about a 1 to 2 out of 10 effort. Hold this position, doing the same 4 to 6 count inhales and exhales like we've done in prior moves for 3 to 4 sets of 30 to 60 seconds. To increase the difficulty, you can add some dynamic rotations into the mix. As you inhale, slowly roll to your back, and then as you exhale, use your leg to roll you back to the start position. You can do this for 2 to 3 sets of 10 rolls per side. This last move is a great way to rotate at higher speeds, but in a relaxed position. Looking straight ahead and keeping your arms completely relaxed, you're going to swing your torso side to side and let your arms go along for the ride. Do this rotation for 2 to 3 sets of 10 per side. And if you've peeled off that hella stiff layer, you might be the person now who's in the arched camp. And this is the person who's limited in shoulder flexion as well as internal rotation. Start by lying on your back with your feet together and knees apart. Your waistband should stay contacting the ground. If it's not, straighten your knee. Your arms are going to be at about 100 to 110 degree angle with the palms facing upward. Although the arm is in relative external rotation here, 60 to 120 degrees of shoulder flexion has a progressive bias toward internal rotation. So don't worry, you'll be driving the motion that you need. Take a slow 4 to 6 count breath in through the nose quietly. On the exhale, go for a 4 to 6 count and reach the arms at that angle at a 2 to 3 out of 10 effort. Maintain that position for 3 to 4 sets of 30 to 60 seconds. This next move works within that internal rotation range and uses weight bearing, which helps increase the internal rotation demand. Get a box or elevated surface and place your arms on the box with the elbows bent at a 90-degree angle. Your hips should also be at a 90-degree angle. Make 2-letter C's with your hands and rotate them downward like you're pouring a drink out for your homies. This should get you to contact the pisiform, which is this wiggly bone that's on the pinky side of the wrist. Start sagged, looking straight down. Take a slow 4 to 6 count breath in through the nose. During the exhale, which should also be 4 to 6 count, use that pisiform, that wiggly bone, and the kneecaps to push your entire trunk upward away from the ground. You only want to go about halfway. Don't make the mistake of over pressing and crunching or under pressing with the knees and staying arched. You want to be in the middle. If you get it right, you're going to feel your abs work a little bit. Hold this position and do the same slow 4 to 6 count breaths for 3 sets, 30 to 60 seconds. And this last move helps restore your ability to rotate without arching, which can improve your shoulder mobility. Place a yoga block between the elbow and the knee on one side. Inhale, roll to your back as a unit. Exhale, back to the start. Do 2 to 3 sets of 10 rolls per side with this move. To increase the difficulty, change the dimensions of the block so the elbow and knee get closer together. Now, you might have opened up your shoulder mobility at this point, but if you're that person who tends to have more of that slouched position, which is limited in shoulder flexion and external rotation, then you'll want to try these movements, which focus on opening up the front part of the body, so that way you're less slouched. Start by lying on your stomach with a pad or a firm pillow underneath the lower ribs and ideally the top part of the front of the pelvis. Your fists will be up against your chest with your elbows chicken winged out. Look straight down, take a slow breath for a 4 to 6 count in through the nose. During the exhale, use your arms to press your trunk upward without losing lower rib cage position. Do this press at about a 3 out of 10 effort. Maintain this position without sagging down for 3 to 4 sets of 30 to 60 seconds, doing the same slow breaths throughout. We can then progress this by driving rotation from this face down position. Lie on your stomach with your arms overhead. And as you're inhaling, raise one arm up and have your eyes watch the fingers. This will cause you to segmentally roll to your back. On the exhale, take that same arm and reach across the body, turning your head to get back to the start position. Do 2 to 3 sets of 10 rolls with this move, making sure that the legs stay relaxed throughout. And this last move really opens up the chest wall, which will improve your mobility like mega. It works best with an exercise ball, but you can do this bending over a couch as well. Place your pelvis, mid-back, and upper back along a Swiss ball and bend backwards over it. Put your hands on your forehead like you're in a Home Alone movie and let the elbows flare out until you feel a little stretch on the chest. Then from there, bring the elbows forward. Take a 2 out of 10 pressure downward into your head so your biceps start to engage slightly. Do the same 4 to 6 count inhales and exhales like we've done with the other movements for 3 to 4 sets of 30 to 60 seconds, letting your head relax backwards as you do so. If you've gone through all those moves and mastered them Your shoulder mobility could be a lot better, but you might be the person right now who's in that asymmetrical camp where you have a limitation on one side, full in the opposite rotation, and then you have the exact opposite presentation on the other side. That sounds like you tried these moves. You can actually start with the armbar roll that we did as a progression for the people who are hella stiff, but only do it on one side. Whichever arm is limited in internal rotation, that should be the top arm. And you can progress this in weight if you desire. You just want to make sure that you can get that full reach throughout. But the next move is going to be a cross connect, which helps open up the upper back. This one, you want the arm that's limited in external rotation to be the reaching arm. Lie on your back with one foot up against the wall and ideally a foam roller resting underneath the leg. Press that foot straight into the wall, especially through the heel and the ball of the big toe. Just make sure that your foot's not tipping as you do so. Get it right, you'll feel a little bit of the hamstring working. Take the opposite leg and roll it towards the middle. This is going to rotate your entire body towards the limited side, which can help improve external rotation in the shoulder. Take the arm and reach at a 60-degree angle. What I tell people is imagine you're holding a jacket over your shoulder. Make sure that the elbow stays bent. As the elbow moves towards midline, take a slow 4 to 6 count breath in through the nose. If you get it right and you go slow, you'll feel that area of your upper back pressing into the ground as you breathe. Exhale through the mouth softly for a 4 to 6 count. Hold this position for 3 to 4 sets of 30 to 60 seconds. And this last move is a backwards crawl, which will improve rotation on both sides of the body. You'll be on hands and knees, making sure that the hands are flat. Start sag. Take a slow breath in through the nose, and then during the exhale, use your hands and knees to press your trunk upward at about a 3 out of 10 effort. Don't go all the way, because if you do that, you could crunch, and that will limit your shoulder mobility gains. If you don't press enough with the knees, you could stay in an arched position, which also will limit your shoulder mobility. Inhale, press more of your weight to one arm and the opposite knee. This will unweight the opposite arm and leg. As you're inhaling, you're going to step backwards inches. We want these steps to be small. You want to press firm enough that you feel some ab engagement. Exhale, place all limbs back on the ground. Alternate taking these small steps. Inhale, step back a few inches or centimeters. Exhale, back down. Inhale, step back. Exhale, back down. Do this for 3 to 4 sets of 5 to 10 steps per side. Now, if you spent some time going through these drills and you've seen some shoulder mobility improvements, or you've tried them and you think they're too easy, then you can go through these finisher moves, which I use, that can kick your mobility gains to the next level. But I gotta warn you, they're stupid tough. The first thing is going to involve hanging from a bar. You want to grip the bar with the palms facing away from you, and your legs can either be supported on a box, which is easier, or you can let them dangle, which is more difficult. Breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth slowly and easily, but as you do so, you want to swing your hips from side to side and go as far as you possibly can control, and you can even progress this to going to one arm holds at a time. Do this for 2 to 3 sets of 5 to 10 swings per side. The next is a shoulder roll, which helps improve rotation, flexion, and so much more. Take your arm, slide it across your body and downward towards your opposite leg. Flex the head down and see if you can get some weight bearing through the top part of the neck and shoulder. You're then just going to roll over and then get back to the start position and try the same thing on the opposite side. I usually go 3 to 4 sets of 3 to 5 rolls per side, because sometimes if you do too many in succession, you can get a little dizzy. And then the last move is excellent for improving overhead mobility and internal rotation. Start in a downward dog position, making sure that the hands are flat. You don't have to lock the knees out excessively, because if you do that, there's always that tendency to arch. Then You want to step back and inhale through the nose with a 4 to 6 count, moving the same side, arm, and leg. Exhale, place both back down on the ground. Take another full breath sequence in this position. Then do the same thing. Inhale, step back with the opposite arm and leg. Exhale on the ground, and do another full breath in position. Do this for 2 to 3 sets of 6 to 10 steps per side. Now, if your shoulders are moving better and you're feeling good, but you're thinking, I still want to do some stuff to improve my posture, for the love of God, don't make the mistake that I talk about in this video right here, and it'll show you a better way instead.